You're in a meeting at work when your boss asks for volunteers to lead in a new project everyone's been talking about. It's exactly the kind of opportunity you've been hoping for, the chance to prove yourself, to take on more responsibility, to actually make a difference. But instead of raising your hand, you find yourself sinking lower in your chair, suddenly very interested in your phone, hoping someone else will speak up first. Or maybe you're at a party where someone else starts making comments you know are wrong, harmful even. You feel your heart racing because you know you should say something, but instead you excuse yourself to the bathroom and spend 10 minutes giving yourself a pep talk that ends with you deciding just to stay quiet. We've all had those moments when opportunity knocks at the door and we pretend we're not home. When we know we're capable of more, but somehow we convince ourselves we're not ready yet. I've been fascinated lately by this thing that happens to so many of us. We spend years preparing ourselves, getting educated, building skills, gaining experience. But when the moment comes to actually step up and use what we've learned, we freeze. We second guess ourselves. We find reasons why we're not qualified, not ready, not the right person for the job. Statistics Canada reports that 68% of Canadians between 18 and 64 feel that they lack the confidence to pursue leadership opportunities in their workplace. But here's the surprising part. When their supervisors are surveyed about those same individuals, 82% say that they see leadership potential that isn't being used. It's like we're all suffering from some collective case of imposter syndrome, convinced that everyone else has it figured out while we're just pretending to know what we're doing. We scroll through social media looking at people who seem to be changing the world, starting companies, making art, leading movements, and we think, how do they get so confident? What do they know that I don't know? But here's what I'm learning. Confidence isn't usually what separates the people who step up from the people who step back. Most of the time, the people who look brave on the outside are just as scared on the inside as the rest of us. The difference is that they've learned to act in spite of their fear rather than because of their confidence. Author Susan Jeffers puts it this way: feel the fear and do it anyway. The idea being that we don't wait for confidence to arrive. We build through action, through showing up, through doing the thing even when we don't feel ready. I think about the people I know who are absolutely, creative and they're capable. They're compassionate people who can genuinely make a difference in their communities, their workplaces, their families, but they're stuck in this weird limbo where they feel too inexperienced to lead, but too educated to follow. Too young to be taken seriously, but too old to keep using their age as an excuse. And the really tragic part is that while we're all sitting around waiting to feel ready, the world keeps needing what we have to offer. Problems go unsolved because we don't think we have or we know enough yet. Ideas go unexpressed because we're waiting for someone more qualified to speak up. Opportunities pass us by because we're convinced we need just a little bit more experience, just a little bit more confidence, just a little bit more proof that what we're actually capable of doing and what deep down we know we can do. Research from Harvard Business Review shows that people who are promoted into leadership roles typically feel ready for only about 60% of their new responsibilities. But here's the thing, that same study found that the most successful leaders were the ones who were willing to learn the other 40% on the job rather than waiting until they were 100% ready. I've been thinking about this pattern a lot lately, especially as I watch friends and peers navigate career transitions, relationship decisions, and life choices that feel way too big and too important for people who still sometimes feel like they're figuring things out. And it got me reflecting on this story in the Bible about someone who felt exactly the same way we do. There's this person in the Bible who was literally hiding when opportunity came knocking. Not just avoiding responsibility, but literally hiding in fear from the very people he was supposed to be leading. When God called him to step up, his first response was essentially, "Are you sure you have the right person? Because I'm pretty sure you don't." But what happened next changed everything, not just for him, but for an entire nation. And I think his story has something important to say to those of us who are tired of feeling like we're not ready yet, but don't know how to move on from our past or past our insecurities and fears.
Every day, Hope Channel Canada is transforming lives with health, love, and salvation. Together, we are creating a ripple effect that spreads hope across the nation. Now we invite you to become an agent of hope in Canada. Whether it's through prayer, volunteering, or your financial support, your involvement creates a larger wave of change. Like puzzle pieces coming together, every small act contributes to a bigger picture of hope. So visit agentsofhope.ca or call 1-855-4-HOPE-TV to join the movement. Thank you for sharing hope with us.
The story I want to tell you takes place during one of the darkest periods in Israel's history. The people had been oppressed by the Midianites for 7 years, their crops destroyed, their livestock stolen, their confidence shattered. They were living in caves and hiding places, reduced to the guerrilla farming just to survive. And in the middle of this national crisis, we meet someone who perfectly embodies the fear and insecurity of his entire generation. His name is Gideon, and when we first meet him, he's doing something that tells us everything we need to know about his state of mind. The Bible says the angel of the Lord came and sat beneath the great tree at Ophrah, which belonged to Joash in the clan of Abiezer. Gideon, son of Joash, was threshing wheat at the bottom of a winepress to hide the grains from the Midianites. Now, if you don't know much about ancient farming practices, let me explain why this detail matters. Threshing wheat, separating the grain from the stalks, was normally done on a hilltop where the wind can blow away the chaff. It was done in the open, often as a community activity, but Gideon is doing it at the bottom of a wine press, hidden away, working alone in secret. This isn't just about protecting grain from raiders. This is about a man who has internalized fear so deeply that he's operating from a place of constant hiding. He's not just avoiding the Midianites, he's avoiding being seen, period. And this is exactly where the angel of the Lord chooses to show up. Not when Gideon is feeling brave or confident or ready for a challenge, not when he's demonstrating leadership or courage, right in the middle of his hiding, his fear, his sense of inadequacy. Here's what the angel says to this terrified man crouched in a wine press. "Mighty hero, the Lord is with you." I love the audacity of this greeting. Gideon is literally hiding from his problems, and God calls him a mighty hero. He's operating from fear, and God addresses him by his potential rather than his current reality. It's like calling someone who's never run a day in their life a marathon champion, or greeting a struggling student as a future Nobel Prize winner. But Gideon's response is so relatable, it hurts. "Sir, if the Lord is with us, then why has all this trouble come to us? Where are all the miracles our ancestors told us about? Didn't they say the Lord has brought us up out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and handed us over to the Midianites." This is the response of someone who's been disappointed by life, who's lost faith in the idea that things can actually get better. Gideon isn't scared, he's disillusioned. He's looked around at his circumstances and concluded that either God isn't real, or God doesn't care, or God has given up on his people entirely. A recent study by the Angus Reid Institute found that 58% of Canadians report feeling overwhelmed by the state of the world, and 43% say that they've lost confidence that positive change is possible. Gideon would fit right in with these statistics. He's not just dealing with personal insecurity, he's dealing with systemic breakdown and the feeling that hope itself might be naive. How many of us have been exactly where Gideon is? Looking at our lives, our communities, our world, and thinking, if God is real and if God cares, then why is everything such a mess? Why am I struggling so much? Why do I feel so unprepared for everything that's being asked of me? But instead of arguing with Gideon's theology or correcting his assumptions, God does something fascinating. He gives him an assignment. Go with the strength you have and rescue Israel from the Midianites. I am sending you. Go with what you have. Go with the strength you have. Not just the strength you wish you had, not the strength you think you need, not the strength other people seem to have, the strength you actually have right now in this moment, hiding in the wine press. And Gideon's response is the most honest thing anyone has ever said to God. But Lord, how can I rescue Israel? My clan is the weakest in the whole tribe of Manasseh, and I am the least in my entire family. This is imposter syndrome at its finest. Gideon doesn't think he's unqualified. He thinks he's the most unqualified person possible. His family is insignificant, and within that insignificant family, he is the least significant member. He's basically saying, God, I think you've got your wires crossed. I'm nobody special. I'm the wrong person for this job. But here's God's response, and I really want you to hear this. I will be with you, and you will destroy the Midianites as if you were fighting against one man. God doesn't argue with Gideon's assessment of his qualifications. God doesn't try to convince him that he's actually more capable than he thinks. God simply says, I will be with you. The qualification isn't Gideon's strength or experience or confidence. The qualification is God's presence and power working through him. But even this promise isn't enough to convince Gideon. He asks for a sign, then another sign, and then another sign. He puts out a fleece and asks God to make it wet while keeping the ground dry. Then he asks God to do the opposite the next night. He's looking for confirmation, for certainty, for some kind of guarantee that this isn't a terrible mistake. And God patiently provides every sign Gideon asked for. Not because God has something to prove, but because God understands that sometimes we need to build courage gradually, one small step at a time. When Gideon finally starts moving forward, it's not with bold confidence, but with terrified obedience. His first assignment is to tear down his father's altar to Baal and build an altar to God in its place. But he's so scared of what people will think that he does this at night with his servants helping him. The next morning, when the townspeople discover what he's done, they want to kill him. His own father has to defend him. This is not the triumphant beginning of a hero's journey. This is a scared man making a decision that puts him in immediate danger, with his own community turning against him. But something starts to shift. When the Midianites gather for another raid, the Spirit of the Lord clothed Gideon with power, the Bible tells us. He blows a ram's horn, and men from surrounding tribes come to join him. Suddenly, this hiding, fearful farmer has an army. But even with an army behind him, Gideon is still struggling with confidence. When God tells him his army is too big and reduces it from 32,000 men to just 300, Gideon is understandably nervous. So God gives him one more confidence boost. He tells Gideon to sneak into the enemy camp and listen to what they're saying. What Gideon overhears changes everything. He finds two Midianite soldiers talking about a dream one of them had. In the dream, a loaf of barley bread rolled into their camp and knocked over a tent. The other soldier interprets his dream as meaning that Gideon and his tiny army are going to defeat the entire Midianite force. Think about this. Gideon's enemies are more confident in his ability to defeat them than he is. They're literally having prophetic dreams about how he's going to win while he's still asking for signs and seeking reassurance. I mean, this is such a picture of how we often underestimate ourselves. Other people can see our potential, our capabilities, our strengths, while we're still fixated on our weaknesses and limitations. Sometimes our biggest obstacle isn't external opposition, it's our own internal narrative about why we're not qualified, not ready, not capable.
Hello, good to see you today here at the Lenses of Love set. I love to watch Sam's message and learn from him how to see God and His Word through the lenses of love. Perhaps you would like to learn more about other questions of life. For example, why am I here? Is there a God? Why is there so much evil and suffering? And why are there so many different religions, and which one is true? Is the Bible fact or fiction? Who is Jesus of Nazareth? Was he truly God as Christians say he is? Why did Jesus come to earth to die? And how does his death offer us salvation? What happens when I die? Is there really a heaven or a hell? These questions and others we answer on our online Bible study platform at hopestudy.ca. There, you will find answers to these and other crucial life questions. We would love to hear from you. Please email us at hopestudy@hopetv.ca. And remember, there is hope and answers to life's biggest questions in the Word of God.
After overhearing this conversation, Gideon finally steps into his calling with something resembling confidence. He goes back to his 300 men, gives them a battle plan that involves trumpets and torches and breaking clay jars, and leads them to one of the most unlikely military victories in history. The Midianites, confused by the noise and the lights in the darkness, turn on each other and flee. Gideon's army doesn't even have to fight, they just have to show up and make noise while God does the impossible. But here's what I find most interesting about Gideon's story. His transformation from coward to leader wasn't instantaneous. It was a process. He went from hiding in a wine press to asking for signs to taking small risks to finally stepping into his full leadership role. Each step was built on the previous one. Each act of courage made the next one a little easier. And research on confidence building supports this approach. Psychologist Albert Bandura's work on self-efficacy shows that confidence is built through what he calls mastery experiences, which are small successes that gradually build our belief in our own capabilities. Gideon didn't wake up one day feeling like a mighty warrior. He became one through a series of increasingly bold actions. And even after his great victory, Gideon wasn't perfect. Later in the story, he makes some questionable decisions and gets caught up in pride and power. He doesn't become a flawless superhero. He remains a human being with strengths and weaknesses, successes and failures. But the point isn't that Gideon became perfect. The point is that he moved from paralysis to action, from hiding to leading, from disqualifying himself to letting God qualify him for the work that needed to be done. So what does this mean for us trying to figure out our own potential or how to step into our own potential? First, it means that feeling unqualified doesn't actually disqualify us. God specializes in using people who don't think they're ready, people who feel like they're the least likely candidates for the job. Second, it means that courage is usually developed gradually, not discovered suddenly. We don't wake up one day feeling brave. We build courage by taking small steps, asking for help when we need it, and taking the right step even when we can't see the whole staircase. Third, it means that our circumstances don't determine our capabilities. Gideon was living in one of the worst periods in his nation's history. His family was insignificant. His confidence was shattered, but none of that prevented God from using him to bring about massive change. Fourth, it means that sometimes we need to act our way into courage rather than wait for courage to motivate our actions. Gideon didn't feel brave when he tore down his father's altar. He felt terrified, but he did it anyway, and that action created momentum for everything that followed. As Mel Robbins puts it, you are never going to feel like it, so you might as well just do it. Gideon's story illustrates that perfectly. He was afraid at every step, but he kept taking the next step anyway. Finally, it means that our past patterns of hiding and avoidance don't have to define our future. Gideon had probably been operating from fear for years, but when the moment came up to step up, he was able to change his behavior and step into a completely different role. The beautiful thing about Gideon's story is that it gives us permission to be scared and still move forward. It shows us that God doesn't need us to have it all figured out before he can use us. Sometimes the very thing that makes us feel disqualified, be it our youth or our inexperience or insecurity, is exactly what God wants to work through. Recent neuroscience research shows that our brains are much more adaptable than we previously thought. The concept of neuroplasticity proves that we can literally rewire our thought patterns and behavioral responses throughout our lives. Gideon's transformation from coward to leader isn't just spiritually inspiring, it's scientifically possible. But let's also talk about the community aspect of Gideon's transformation. He didn't become a leader in isolation. God provided him with signs, with encouragement, with other people who were willing to follow him. His father defended him when the community turned against him. Other tribes sent men to join his army. This reminds us that stepping into our potential often requires finding the right community, people who can see our potential even when we can't, people who are willing to support us as we take risks and grow into who we're meant to become. Sometimes the reason we stay stuck in our hiding places isn't just fear, it's that we're surrounded by people who are comfortable with us staying small. Gideon had to be willing to risk disapproval from his immediate community in order to step into his larger calling. I think about the person who recently told me, I realized that my family was so used to me being the quiet one that they actually got uncomfortable when I started speaking up more. I had to find new relationships with people who could celebrate my growth instead of feeling threatened by it. Gideon's story also shows us that leadership often emerges in crisis. He wasn't chosen during a time of peace and prosperity when leadership felt safe and comfortable. He was called when things were desperate, when traditional solutions had failed, when someone needed to step up and try something different. Maybe you're facing your own crisis right now in your career or your relationships, your community, or your family. Maybe it feels like everything is falling apart and you're the least qualified person to help fix it. Gideon's story suggests that this might be exactly when you're most ready to discover capabilities you don't even know you had. The transformation from coward to hero often happens not despite our circumstances, but because of them. Crisis has a way of stripping away our excuses and forcing us to rediscover resources we didn't know we possessed. Gideon's story reminds us that the distance between coward and hero is often much shorter than we think. It's not about becoming a different person. It's about becoming the person you already are when fear isn't making the decisions. I think about all the people I know who are hiding in their own wine presses, convinced that they're not ready for the opportunities in front of them. Maybe you're one of them. Maybe you've been disqualifying yourself from leadership roles or from meaningful relationships because you don't feel as though you have what it takes. Maybe you've been waiting for someone older, someone more experienced, someone more confident to step up and solve those problems that you see around you. Maybe you've been telling yourself that you need more education, that you need more experience, that you need more time before you can really contribute something meaningful to the world. And here's what I want you to know. The very fact that you feel unprepared might be the strongest indicator that you're exactly the right person for whatever it is that you're avoiding. The people who change the world aren't usually the ones who feel ready. They're usually the ones who act despite not feeling ready. Your generation is facing challenges that no previous generation has had to navigate. Climate change, social media, economic uncertainty, political polarization, global pandemics. These are problems that require fresh thinking, new perspectives, innovative solutions. And who better to tackle them than people who haven't yet been told that certain things are impossible? But you have to stop hiding in the wine press. You have to stop disqualifying yourself before anyone else has a chance to. You have to start believing that your ideas matter, your voice has value, and that your contribution is needed. The world doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be present. It doesn't need you to have all the answers. It needs you to be willing to ask better questions. It doesn't need you to be fearless. It needs you to be faithful, to show up, to try, to take time, or to try and take the next step even when you don't see the whole path. Maybe your calling doesn't look like leading an army into battle. Maybe it looks like starting a conversation that needs to happen. Maybe it looks like applying for a job you don't feel qualified for. Maybe it looks like speaking up when in a meeting when everyone else is staying quiet. Maybe it looks like creating something that doesn't exist yet, but the world needs. Whatever it is, I promise you this, the strength you have right now is enough for the next step. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You don't need to feel completely confident. You just need to be willing to move from hiding to showing up, from disqualifying yourself to letting God qualify you. The angel called Gideon a mighty hero while he was still crouched in fear at the bottom of the winepress, not because of what he had already accomplished, but because of what was possible when he stopped letting fear make his decisions. Someone, somewhere, needs what you have to offer. Some problem is waiting for your unique combination of gifts, experiences, and perspectives to solve it. Some opportunity is sitting there wondering why you haven't stepped up. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting for someone else to go first. The God who called a coward to become a hero is the same God who's calling you to step out of your own hiding place and into the person you were created to be. Through these lenses of love, seeing our insecurity as invitation rather than disqualification, our fear as normal rather than shameful, our inexperience as potential rather than limitation, we discover that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to act in spite of fear, to move forward despite uncertainty, to step up even when we don't feel ready. Your Winepress season is over. It's time to come up into the light, pick up your trumpet, and start making some noise. The world is waiting for the hero you're afraid you're not, but that God already knows you are.
Every time I take a look at you, I realize that you are my work of art. I see the perfect traces that I have designed. Though you're away, you're always in my heart. I haven't changed. I'm still the same as always. My arms are open wide. I'm waiting. I still bear the scars on my hand. I haven't changed. I'm still the same as always. I'm so full of love. Come back to me, because I'm still the same. I'm still the same as always. I'm so full of love. Come back to me, because I'm still the same. The same. I haven't changed. I'm still the same as always. My arms are open wide. I'm waiting. I still bear the scars on my hand. I haven't changed. I'm still the same as always. I'm so full of love. Come back to me, because I'm still the same. I'm still the same as always.